Jake.
Okay.
Take notes.
Second.
I'm back
Capitalism.
again.
Eat the rich.
Let's make some money by hacking the big.
Anarcho-communism.
Shut
The
up,
big
Landon.
guy.
Stop it.
Okay.
I don't even see
Hey, everyone
how-
quiet for Emmanuel. Remember, if you talk, it hears you on stream.
Well, Manuel.
Yeah, I'm back again.
Where's the meme of the day, bro? Where is it?
Don't worry, I got you.
Right there. Looking at it.
Thank you, Jason.
Okay. Before we continue, I have to just a disclaimer. Do not do this. Please. I did not do it because obviously I'm ethical. We are good people, so this is fun, but do not do this.
What you're presenting on illegal, Emmanuel, I swear to God.
It's not. But the real topic is backdooring a smart camera. So yeah, pretty straightforward. So the meme of the day, I got you. You'll get this right because I feel like we do this every time we try to apply to internships, especially freshmen. You have what they want, and this is what the school teaches us, which does not always work together. But if you come to the RIT sec, we help you.
Shameless
Yes.
plug.
Yes.
Plug. It's a meme about plug. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's go. I have like 30 minutes to do this. So, what is IoT reversing? Well, there's the IoT. We all know what that is. Oh, shut up, Siri. So we have IoT, which is just Internet of Things, and we've used it. We know what it is. It's just things I believe that should not be connected to the internet. So fridges, toilets, for some reason, toothbrushes, literally anything. And what is reversing? We know that as just trying to get like the source code or try to extract information from a software or a hardware, depending on what you're doing. And for IoTs, there's two ways you can get it from. If you get the binary files or the firmware, you can try to extract the file system and try to find any kernel modules and try to find vulnerabilities in those to exploit the IoT device, or you can get the firmware from the hardware by using some accuracy stuff. I don't know what it's called, but I don't do a hardware. What's up?
That stuff Josh was talking about with like Arduinos and
Yes.
serial ports. That's like
Serial
this,
ports.
right?
That's what it's called. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how you get it from the hardware. You cannot get the software. So, what is our target? This is really slow, but yeah. So we know there's multiple IoT devices out there. We have the big companies from Google, Amazon, yada yada, or we can go with the tiny guys and just try to because since they're tiny, they don't have a lot of security on it. So that's an easy way to go. So and we have to pick a target. So for this, we are gonna use. I don't know how to say the name, but Wise, but Wise. Yes, they are a little company. I think they're getting big now. It was created by employees of Amazon. Jake.
Jake. It was Jake. Jake.
So a bunch of former employees came together to create this smart company, and they specialize in smart home products and wireless cameras, which is what I'm gonna try to target today. And just some fun facts about it, not really important, but it's fun. So this is gonna be the target. This is $25 on Amazon, and you can get this by itself, or you can get this with the SD card. So depending on how much you want to spend, you can get whatever, and this is going to be our target. So, how do we start? So if you just get okay, let's keep going.
There you go, it's back.
So, if you get just the camera itself, and you need to get the binary. So it's on their website. It's wise.com/downloads, and you can find the latest binary file. But in today's demo, we're going to use the 4.9.5.98. This is an old binary firmware, but you can I believe you can use all these techniques with the newer version. So when you bin walk is a tool where it uses offsets to get like what's in that binary file. So in this case, we have about five. Actually, there's a lot more of this, but I just picked the top five. We get the U image error, and there's two. There's try this. Ah, okay, cool. There's that, which is just the entry point, and there's this part, which is pointing to a kernel, a kernel module, not module, but it's a Linux kernel right there. And the next slide is just LZMA. In the next slide, I kind of describe them. And the last two are file systems. These are kind of required for like IoT. So they pretty much take the Linux file system and compress them into a really smaller size. Hence the name Squash. And just for like for IoT devices definition. But now, so this is the U image is the image file that's used by the U boot wrapper to just know how to really unpack or how to just run the binary. And the LZMA, think of it as a zip file. You don't want to because of the size of IoT devices, they're really small, so you don't want to give them like a huge binary file. So kind of zip them up with a LZMA. And again, the Squash file system. It's different from the way we use the file systems, right? Because the ones we have are write, read, and possibly execute. But for the Squash FS, it's just going to be read only. So when we get this, we cannot really play with it as much. But it's you can write to them, and it's used to mount. So you can mount them to like different devices just to get a hold of the file system. And the last one is just like a log structure file system used to flash the file system onto the embedded service system. Sorry. Okay, so we got that out of the way. So the next step is to extract all of this. 1 second. All of this. So we could use bin walk dash t to do that, but we're gonna write a script because we like to code. We like doing Python. So right here. Okay, cool. I took the top five, the like most important parts, and we put in the offsets, which is if you remember from the previous image, you can see it tells you like the hexadecimals. So that's the offset from the beginning. So you put that there, and yeah, and just this is just the size of that each section. So and I think yeah. So this is just a really simple Python script. So we go to that offset, we open a file, and we just write to that file and close it. Simple as that. Nothing fancy. So if you run that, we get this. So we see that we have all of this written into, and there will be the squash. 1 second, I can't read. Oh yeah, so it's going to be this files right here. The U kernel right there, the header 1 and 2 squash fx and GFFS2. So we have them out there. So that's good. But now we have to extract those because they are like also like a zip file of their kind. We have to extract data out of those individual ones. And the first one we can do is the Squash FX, which is like the file system. So that's really easy. We can just use on Squash, pretty straightforward. Just reverse the step, dash D, the output name, and the input file. And when you do that, you get, oh my God, wow. We get like, it tells you pretty good information about the things it finds. So in this case, there's 61 files, 39 directories, 306 symlinks, and that. So just from looking at this, we can assume that this might be the main file system. So that's how you own Squash a Squash FX FS file. And for the so inside of wait 1 second. Okay, so I did the same thing for the Squash FX 1 and 2. and I also did it for the JFFS too. And to extract from that one, you have to use Jefferson. It's a Python script, which again just does the similar thing of the unsquash FS. So just extracting it, and if we like ls in those directories that I created, which are going to be JFS2 underscore out. So pretty much anything with the underscore out, that would be the output file. So in the first one, which is the JFFS2 file, that contains just binaries and configurations for this firmware. And the second one, which is Squash FX1, again, this is the main part. This contains, as you can see, this looks like a Linux file system. It has the etc folder there. It has the media. What else? The bin folder contains the binaries. Fun stuff. And the last one, which is also a Squash FS, but instead of like having a file system, it just contains kernel modules. So in this scenario, I'm just going for the top one, but you can possibly try to find any possible exploit in the kernel modules too. So if you want to do some real reversing, looking at assembly, you can do that. I had no time. This was done in the morning. This morning. So um, let's explore. We have a file system, so we tend to just explore after we got something. So we look around. It's a file system, so we go to the etc directory first because it's the location for configurations. So in there we see some really familiar files that we've seen. We see the shadow file, the password file, host name, host, yada yada. And if you cat the shadow file, you get this beautiful line right there. So that's the root and the password hash for this firmware. And if you pass that into some password cracking software, we get the password as iSmart2 or 12. iSmart12. So that's the password for this device. But where do you use it? So we'll get there eventually. But yeah, so we found some critical, not critical, but like some useful information. And next slide, we now look for the startup file. So we know like when we boot up the files, a Linux system that has a list of files it has to run first. So this is the entry point. I forgot what the name is. It's actually called RC3. I don't know why that name, but this is the first file or script that gets executed on startup, and we see pretty much like I would say standard stuff. But at the bottom right here, we can see it's starting up a telnet service. So like, why do we need that for a camera? I mean, yes, connect to it through internet, but yeah. So it has this running. We can possibly use the password that we found to log into that. So if we try to, oh my god, is it showing now? Okay. Pretend like this is my terminal. It like nothing changed. But when we try to connect to it, we get unable to connect. And if we scan the IP address of this camera, it says all ports are closed. So something weird is going on. We have to try to figure out what exactly. Why does it like it pretty much says it was going to start it on startup and now it's not there. We do some digging and we see that in the JFFS2 file, some binary called iCamera also has the string telnet. So if we do a string on that, we see that it kills that telnet binary. I mean, that's good, but we want to know what exactly we can do with this. So what if we try to bypass that and start the telnet daemon? And does it work now? Okay. And wait, did I skip a slide? I think I did. One second. No, I did not. So if we do ls on that binary, the iCamera the eye camera, sorry, if we do an ls on the telnet binary, we see that it's pointed to BusyBox. And if we do ls on the whole directory, they're all pointed to BusyBox. So just a little background. BusyBox is like a Swift Army tool that contains a lot of binaries compressed into really small into one executable, and this is used for Android IoT devices. Just if you need a lot of the classic Linux command line tools in a really small package, BusyBox is the way to go. And again, it combines a lot of tiny versions, so it's not gonna have like the full suite, like the full functionalities. It's just gonna get like the basic and put them into one executable. And again, it's all linked to the one binary. So what can we do with that? We can just tell BusyBox rather than just having the telnet itself. We can tell BusyBox to run telnet. So that's different from it's different from this for some reason. If you do this, it ignores. Oh, I remember now. So if you do telnet, this will run and stop because in the previous binary, the iCamera binary, it's going to stop anything with telnet D percent. But if we do the BusyBox, that's different from this, so it's just going to ignore that and not stop it. And when we put that into the startup file, save it, and again we can try to pack it up with I think Beanwalk. It's going to have some errors, so again you can just write your own script. Pretty straightforward, just like the unpack. Instead of writing to it, well, instead of writing to our own directory, just putting it into another file, and we save that to create again just to like repackage the binaries or the edits we've made. Okay, next slide. And all magic, you pack it up together. There's a video about this. You guys can watch it later. So we pack it, we install it back on the SD card, plug it into the camera, and start it up. Give it some few minute, and try to turn it back into it, and voila, we have this running. We log in with root and the iSmart 12 password that we found that we cracked, and voila, we have a shell on the camera. I was supposed to bring that, but I forgot. So also, this is fun. This is good. We are able to just start up BusyBox, well, turn it on this little box camera. So what else can we do? I feel like as hackers, there's one thing we like more than just this. We like something more than just plain shells. We like reverse shells, right? Right. Ah, yes, I got it. Reverse shells because we don't want to have. We want the target to always connect back to us. So in order to do that, we're still going to use BusyBox again. BusyBox really just gets everything into one small package. But before we continue, there are some problems with the BusyBox on the default firmware. So it has a lot of tools, but it does not have Netcat, which is what we want to use for our exploit, I guess. So what we can do is we can again BusyBox. We can just go to BusyBox website and find the binary that contains Netcat. So in our case, it's called MIPS, MISPS question mark. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be the next slide. But we go to the BusyBox website and pick one of the binaries that we believe Netcat is in. So that's good. But when we looked it up, or when I looked it up, it was 1.5 megabytes, which is not great for us because if you look at this file system, yeah, this file system, the right here, this is where the file system is saved, like you see, slash system, and we don't have space for a 1.5 binary, so we have to figure out another way to put this in there. And if we look at the slash temp, we have space to do this. So, and this slash temp is again we know the slash temp gets deleted every reboot time. So what we can do is we can just create a script to download the binary, the BusyBox binary, into slash temp and run that from there. So every time they reboot the system, it's obviously going to remove the binary first, but it's also going to download it again and just do whatever we needed to do. So, and again, from in that script, we can now tell BusyBox to connect back to our reverse server shenanigans that we want to do. So this is going to be the script we use when we reboot the system. We have to first make sure we are connected to the internet just to be safe. Then we do a wget to because this is a really small binary. It does not support HTTPS. So you can download the BusyBox binary that we're going to use to like your own local server and make sure it's not secure. We are security students, but we don't really care about security that much. So just make it unsecure for our experiment. So you download that and you just change mode it to be executable, and right away we run the binary netcat and your IP address. So this can be your your local host, or if you have some AWS server, you can just put the IP of that server there. You can change the port, up to you. We can go by the default 4444-E, and it's going to run shell because there's not a lot of fancy shells on this. SH is the way to go. So if you do all of that, we should. Oh, and also in the startup file, we have to make sure we do this. We have to execute our script so that it executes it. Is it clear? And now we wait for a connection. So we're going to assume that we've packed the binary again and installed it onto our SSD, plugged it into the camera, and just power it on and just wait. So we're just going to wait. This is slow. 1 second. Wait. And finally, we get a shell. We get a reverse shell. Awesome. So that's awesome, right? We everyone loves reverse shells. So if the person or you decides to just turn off your camera for the night and turn it back on the next day, if you just have your server running all the time, listening on port 444, you're always going to get a connection, and in there you can get a record that MP4. So if the person or the target is recording with the camera, it's going to be saved here, and depending on how good of a person you are, you can get the video and do whatever. That's up to you. Don't do anything bad again. Just there's a lot you can do. Just don't do it. And yeah, we get a lot of crazy fun stuff. So I think I'm almost done. So what can we do with this? We are able to pack our own backdoor firmware and upload it to our camera. And if we remember, again, you can spy on friends. If you're that kind of person, like, hey, it's your birthday, I got you this IoT device. Have fun with it. And if your friend is not security conscious and just plugs it in, I mean, that's just weird as a friend, giving that to your friend. It's just weird. But we all know that Amazon, you have the return policy. I think it's like 30 days or so, whatever, depending on the product. So this is the part. Disclaimer: do not do this. I don't know what would happen if you get caught. So do not do this. So you can just get the binary, do your shenanigans, make sure it has the backdoor shell script, put it back into the device, and send it back to Amazon. And hopefully they sell that to someone else. And they don't check that I sold this to this person with no SD card, but now it's back with an SD card. Hopefully they don't check that. If that works and someone else gets it and just plugs it in to a random person, you will obviously get a reverse shell, and you can do as much damage as you want. And you can really go crazy and just get like 100 of this and just again do the same step and just send it back to Amazon. And now you have this like crazy. Why am I telling people this? But yeah, now you have this whole botnet of just watching people like a pervert. But again, that's not what we do here. And this is not the same, but there was a similar kind of like not exploit, but like social engineering kind of stuff, where people from IBM X was Red. I don't have any swag, but they used the UPS packaging system. They packed like a bunch of devices. I don't know what they do exactly. I didn't read too much on the article, but pretty much they got this boxes, put a bunch of hardware that I think track and do a lot more, and send it back with UPS, and were able to just I believe infiltrate UPS internal systems just from returning back packages. So this is possible. You can do this, but again, do not do this ever. So that's the end of my presentation. I got in 55. I don't know, that was like 20 something minutes.
Good.
Be awesome because we all are, and also hack the planet. Hack the planet, my dudes. Oh, resources. This first video. That's where the inspiration came from. And there's this try hack me room where you can learn how to do some IoT hacking. This one does more of code analysis because you get the firmware and you get the source code and you have to read that, find vulnerabilities and try to attack it. So that's another method you can do. And lastly, the camera, the target that we use has a bunch of hacks. So a lot of people play with the firmware too. So you can always just find a bunch of different hacks that people have done and just yeah, that's it. Have fun. Good.